Hello everyone, we're back. This would be kind of part 3. This is in between showing a saw running all put together for its intended purpose as a milling saw. Here I wanted to go over the basics of the chain, showing and giving good understanding as to why it's important to keep good sharp chains and keep new chains on your bar. You can see in this video we're showing where the saw is actually binding up, and then I'm also showing examples where it cuts really well, and all I did there was change the chain. So this is just going over chains, talking about chains while I'm putting together the new chain for it, and showing you the results of the saw finally together, and pretty good. Yeah, thanks for hanging in there. I hope this series has been fun and kind of informational for you guys who like to follow this kind of stuff and get as much info as possible out of things as far as saw mechanics and even basics of how chains cut. You want to let all the metals kind of form, cool down together. There's our first knot. Here's a perfect example of just putting a new chain on a saw. To show here the end result. Things are working really well. It's cutting out nice blocks now, nice clean wood. I also show here at the log pile. I'm going to the log pile after this shot, and I show how poorly it was cutting with the older wore-out chain. The older wore-out chain looked to be functional, but it was not functional. And this is with a bar where the width tolerances are right on the edge, where you need that much more good chain working for you. If you lose that little bit, it's going to make a huge difference. So I went and got some new chain, and when breaking a new chain, we want to get the two links that are going the same direction. We want to break there so that we don't have a repeat of that too many times in a longer loop. I'm going to break these two chains, new chains, open, and then make one big long chain out of them, and then fit it to the saw, and hopefully that will give me a better width of kerf, because as you can see, the teeth on the chain, they're wider up front. They stick out a little bit more up front than they do towards the back. The older chain, as I showed previously, is pretty worn and beat. It's even missing teeth, and has a lot of bent teeth on it from hammering on it real hard. So that's going to cause a lot of binding up. So these teeth are in horrible shape, and I'm trying to find some bent ones to show you guys as an example. As a tooth gets bent back, it actually loses its ability to bite in the kerf. I don't know if you can see the difference off the tops of those teeth. That one right there in the middle. This guy is actually bent. That one's bent. That one's pretty badly bent. So those are things that you want to... That one's really tweaked right there. You can see it's... Look at the back of the tooth. It's totally off center from the chain and from the other teeth. Those are things that... There's another nice one. See that guy? Tweak. And what that does, when they get bent, they get pushed in. You would think that a tooth that snags really hard would go the other way, but that's not the case. See, even there, see the missing tooth? There's two of them, two missing teeth, and then a badly bent one. What happens, my theory on it is, you'd think that if a tooth is going to bend, it's going to bend out this way. Every tooth I've had on a saw that bends, as it tweaks back, it goes in. My theory on that is they're sucking in from all the torquing and pressure on the chain. I don't know exactly, but usually a bent tooth is a bad tooth. So what we're doing here, we want to line our block up. It's a little bit easier to see with the shinier, newer chain. We want to line our block up so that it's biting on the drive link and not on the strap. Trying to see how that sits in there. I'm trying my best here to give you a good visual. And that's what we want when we're breaking a chain. We don't want to push on the strap, because that'll cause it to sit funny, and it'll cause it to tweak when we do all that. You see how I took my time to line it up, and it popped it out, and there it even pulled the block up because the strap was perfectly jammed in there as far as I'm concerned. And you see with newer stuff, it's a little bit easier to get newer stuff to fit in there. Again, we're just getting rid of them. I collect too many of those. Here again, I go right to the yellow. Now, if you go and buy chain, Steel has two types of chain. They call it green tag or green link, and then yellow tag or yellow link. All that is that's your color indicator of the aggressiveness of chain. Green link is safety chain. It's going to have what's called a double raker, meaning that when you bend, there will actually be a raker on the drive link. This is your drive link here. And you see this is non-raker drive link, so there's no double raker. So this is considered more aggressive non-safety chain. That's the only difference in your color of your preset straps. It's not necessarily a better chain or well, they consider it pro chain because they don't like selling non-safety chain to the general public, but they do sell them both. If you go to any steel shop, they're going to push you to buy the pro chain. But if you're a first-time user, that green link or safety chain can actually make things a little calmer and easier for you to manage. And basically what that the whole premise of that GreenLink safety chain is the extra drive link actually slows down wobble. It slows down the chances of the saw skipping around side to side, which is going to make the saw feel like it runs smoother. Now, I made one mistake here because I want alternating teeth. I made one small mistake. I broke the wrong link. I went right to the yellow on both when I should have gone one strap past the yellow on one of them, just so that I have completely opposing teeth all the way around. The more you can do things like that, the better in the long run. Since I know that I have a lot of extra length here, it's not a huge issue for me to just knock an extra link out. That's it, just one cutter and 2 drive links, and we're back in business. We're facing the right link, alternate linking. If you look at that, this link's left, that one's right. So that's where I'm going to join. I'm sorry about the not so good camera work, but I am doing this all on a phone and not a fancy GoPro. Now, when you put the repair straps in, you want to make sure that you know top and bottom. You see the little curve on the bottom of that. That's the bottom of my link. There is also a little bit of discerning with the straps. There's a little indent of an arrow in the middle of that strap. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you could probably see. I see it there. Right here in the middle, there's a little indent. Now you want that indent to show on the outside of the tooth, and some straps actually have an inside and outside to them, and if you look real carefully, you can notice the difference. They do taper a little tiny bit on the edges. These don't. So we're in luck there as far as being lazy and not worrying about which way the strap goes, as long as we get it right side up, bottom side down. So I piece them together, and then I put the strap in to hold it. It's hard with newer stuff too, without a bench, because they don't fit real super tight. So you just want to take your time and make sure that you get everything to line up accordingly before closing down on it and starting to squeeze the rivets tight. Like I said, here the first step of spinning the burr onto the rivet is just getting it to hold, just getting enough there to hold the chain together, so then you can go back and forth and work it easily. Now, I went to the shop when I bought these 2 chains. They didn't have it by the foot, so I bought 2 loops. Normally, I like to just buy it by the foot, so then I have a lot of extra. And you get yourself a pack of repair links. You only really need 2 repair links for this process. but it's good to have extras because you may end up wanting to buy more chain and build more of this chain for other things at times. Or you may, if this chain doesn't actually work with that bar effectively enough, then I'm going to want to use it for other things, which would be putting it on shorter bars. As I showed you before, this is for that big bar on the small saw. So we are experimenting because I've never had that bar redressed or put a new tip on it, and the bar was grabbing pretty heavily. See there, I got it pretty tight, and I will, after I size the chain to the saw, I will go back and respin those rivets, which is easy to do after you've had it all fit up, because then you have a full loop. Once you have a full loop, it's easier to do the final tuning on the full loop. Now here I have teeth going the same way, same direction. They're both left side, but because I'm going to be cutting out a length of teeth, if my only option is to use teeth on the same side to get the right fit, then that's where I will go with it. That's okay in that case, because there you kind of have no other choice. In order to get it to fit right, sometimes you have no choice but to go with that, with having the teeth on the same side. Same direct, like left side, right side bite. Now this chain that's on here was that, it's just that real beat up old Oregon chain that I was trying to see how it worked with the bar, and of course it didn't. Not only is it really dull, and the teeth are worn down, but it's also that crappy safety chain. So just to get this right out of our way and not even mess with it is kind of the ideal thing, because that takes a lot of time to cut all those, see all the rakers and safety rakers. This is super safety chain, which this is like every carver's worst nightmare. If you have to use it, fine, but you want to take every one of those extra rakers out at some point. So we'll go back to bolting just putting one nut to hold the bar. This doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly tight. It doesn't have to have everything line up real well. This is just to size up the chain. This is just to hold the bar there while we size our chain up. As long as it's within the range of the sprocket and I can actually push down on it a little bit. Now when I size the chain, when I wrap the loop, I'm always going to wrap back to the bar. See, my finishing point is here and not back here, because it's just going to give me that much better of a placement of where I'm going to want to have that chain. So here my oiler port lines up nicely. And if I go back a little bit, it's a little too tight. And if I go forward a little bit, then I'm giving myself way too much. So here is where I'm going to have a gap between my two teeth. I want to put it right in the middle. This is a little bit hard to get it all tight and right, but you get that one, and then you take this one right to it. And so I'm going to pull that tooth, and here I have two teeth on the same side, which is like what I was saying, it's not a bad thing. It's not the absolute most ideal, but with a new chain, you're not going to feel that difference that much. So if you keep this chain tuned and sharp and stay out of the junk with it, your chances of it cutting rough is going to be less. And there we put our driver right in the middle again. Pop it out. Like I said before, with cutter links, you want to put the cutter facing up. You don't want to press against the cutter or the raker or the side of the strap. You hear that nice snap. And these I will save because I didn't bend these. I save cutters. I save all my cutter links. Because you never know, you could tweak a cutter, you could bend a cutter. It's just going to save you in the long run if you need to replace a few teeth on a nice new chain that, you know, if you did hit something and nick it. Saving those links will actually save you in the long run. I could put that link back in here for an opposing cut, but the thing is if I put it back in here for an opposing cut, there's a cutter here, then there would be a cutter here. That's essentially like a full house chain. So what's going to happen there is that is going to create a little bit of a rough spot, a little bit of extra chain drag. I would rather have a space between two that face the same way for this chain, because I want to go for speed and efficiency in cutting more than I want to go for perfect cut. Perfect cut would be a complete full house chain of this stuff. It would be a slower cut, but it would be smoother. Full house meaning there's a cutter on every link and between all the drivers. That's an expensive chain for this size of chain. Now, here's the beauty of that little indent of the arrow in the middle of the chain. You want that arrow pointing in the direction of your drivers, even if it's on the inside, just for logistics purposes. If there is any difference in that repair link as far as forward and backward, now the arrow is pointing in the same direction as the teeth. So I'm guaranteed now that that link is put in properly. It's probably what happened there is I grabbed a right side link using it as a left side link, so the arrow's on the inside. Not a big deal, because these are not tapered repair links. They are square edge. So the big thing with that, with the tapering, is it's a wear factor. Some chains, typically the Oregon chains, Older Oregon chains actually have that wear point on them where they are tapered a little bit toward the outside of the chain. The taller part of the strap would actually be on the inside so that they would ride the bar a little bit better. Personally, I don't like that because I like the strap that sits completely flat on the rail of the bar and doesn't really leave any room for undue stress and wear, which will cause the chain to eat the rail of the bar out and cause a nasty burr, and then the saw will cut crooked or funny after a while. But that's just personal preference, really. Normally I don't really pay a lot of attention to that because they used to do it with chain straps. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, you saw a lot of repair links with that taper on them. Now you don't really. You just see arrows. Or you see stamping on them that tells you which direction is best to use that strap for. Now this one isn't making any noise. It's not making the squeak noise, probably because they're brand new repair links and they're really clean. They're going in really easy. Hopefully this will be the trick for this saw. It'll be wide enough to make the cut and not bind up the bar. Oh, there's a little bit of that squeak. And here I check the play. There's very little play. It all feels good. It's not too tight. It's not too loose. Now, a rivet that sticks out a little bit, like sideways, that sticks out a little bit past the strap, it's not always a bad thing. If you're real picky about it, yes, you want to push those back in, mostly for strength and lastability. Because that rivet sticking out like that, the indicator, the issue there, is the rivet's not 100% squished down, so chances of extra wear and tear on that rivet might be increased, meaning that you could actually crack the strap. And here in a high torque situation, big bar, little chain, yes, I'm going to fine tune it and try to get that rivet as flat as possible on that chain. There it's nice and clean, looks pretty good to me, and it's not too tight, so I did the right thing there. Taking a little bit of extra couple minutes to make sure it was seated in properly. Back it off a tiny bit. Give it a good squeeze. Now this is probably going to be another multi-video tutorial. I like not editing my videos too much. I know it gets boring for people. They want to see action. They want to see wood chips fly. They want to hear music. They want to see all these editing tricks that we use in our videos to make a more exciting video. But for these tutorials, my purpose is for me to show you as much as possible while I'm actually doing it, and describe it as much as possible,
so you don't miss anything, so I don't leave anything out. Now it's a good clean chain. Feels good, looks good, lines up well. Just to make sure that it's all there and all tight, I want to seat it into the bar nicely. And I did make this chain a little bit close to the sprocket because my oilers, where they line up, is going to be an issue if I go any longer than that. I can't go any shorter because then the back of the bar would be hitting the sprocket, and we know that we don't want that. So to bolt up a bar of this size, you see I'm holding it with my left hand. It's all in place, everything lines up good, and I just keep holding it there. A lot of it is just outsmarting the situation. Keeping it sort of tight. Keeping it lined up well. And listening to the motorcycles scream down the road, the highway. There is our saw on our chain. And our chain. And it's already loose, so while it just loosened up after I spinned it, give it a little, back off the nuts a little bit, give it another tweak forward. Chain can be a little bit tight when you first start out. You just don't want to burn it up before the oil gets to it. You want to let the saw run for a while and let the oil get in it. So there, it's oiled up, it's running good.